Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast. It's Tuesday, July 5th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. I hope everybody had a fun and safe 4th of July. We're talking Royals today. Did you know they would be one of baseball's hottest teams if they hadn't surrendered walk-off home runs in 2 of the past 3 games? Close out those games, and the Royals would be riding a 5-game winning streak. We talk about that and more on today's show that started as a SportsBeat Live hosted by Vahe Gregorian. Also, as the season is approaching the halfway point, how much will the Royals be dealers? We often talk about trading players, but it's getting closer to that time. Okay, let's get started talking Royals.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you enjoy our intro music as much as I do every time we hear it. Thanks before we get started to University of Kansas Health System for sponsoring us, and welcome to Lynn Worthy and Sam McDowell from their outposts in Houston and Lee's Summit. And this is Vahe Gregorian hosting for Blair Kirchhoff, who is, I don't want to say on vacation. He's I guess we'll call it on assignment. He's not here today, but he still has his long arm of influence on what we're going to talk about today. His suggested topics as we got started included the fact that the Royals should be on a 5-game winning streak, which got me thinking. I think you guys are both Seinfeld conversant about the whole concept of anyone can take a lead. It's holding the lead, holding the reservation that is the problem with a couple of these losses in the last 3 games. And why don't we start there? Lynn, you've been in the seat on duty for a couple of these games. It's a nice little trend overall for the Royals, but it's been marked by these two sort of fiasco-like losses in the last 3 games.
Yeah, I guess I would amend should be on a 5-game win streak to could, because there's no guarantees when it comes to some of those spots there. I mean, I guess the one in where was I just recently? Detroit. That I'm already forgetting which city was which, but that one I would say, because they had that lead going into the 9th inning, it's probably more of a should than a could. But yesterday, once that thing got to even, all bets are off, especially in light of the previous one. And then with, Alvarez hitting the way he's hitting, I mean, that guy, there's no way you feel good. I don't care who you got on the mound. There's no way you feel good with him coming to the plate with a chance to do damage or, change a game late. So, but yes, they definitely have, played better. They, there are games that they could have won. Obviously they still have won, those 2 games in between or sandwiched around the 2 walk-off losses. So, but yeah, it just makes it tough, I think, because you play well, you're in position to win, and then lose it late. So in some ways it's tougher than if you just came out and, laid an egg from the start.
Sam, this reminds me a little bit of, we were in conversation, I think, after that 6-0 lead was blown, a couple weeks ago, really. And one of the thoughts I remember us both having, or I think you sort of led the thought, was it was a bad day. It was a bad loss. But part of the takeaway of that day is it needs to be the bigger picture. That was, I believe, a fine Brady Singer start. And that's sort of what we have bubbling up right now, don't we? Underneath a couple of these real ups and downs, we do have some important developmental things seeming to start to take. But focus for now on the starting pitching. Is that a reasonable premise to put out there?
Yeah, I mean, when the team's 20 games under 500, I am more looking for signs of the future. And Jonathan Heasley had a really good bounce back start, which Len mentioned in his game story today. But I was really interested to see how he did bounce back. He had a really rough outing against Texas at Kauffman Stadium his previous time out, and he came out. I think it was Len. He got the first 11 outs of that game yesterday, maybe, or
That sounds right. He didn't really run into any sort of traffic until I think it was the fourth inning.
But the issue with the Royals game yesterday was how many different ways they found to lose that game. I mean, it's not just that they had a 5-0 lead. Heasley's pickoff play, which there was no reason to even attempt to pick off in that. I mean, the guy had a 3-step lead. That cost them a run. They again have a base running miscue. Everybody in the bullpen basically faltered, it seemed like. And, I guess maybe this is indicative of where the Royals are right now, but Vinnie Pasquantino, when the Royals are already up 5-0, hits a ball to the warning track with 2 guys on base and 2 outs, right to the wall in right center. That if the ball's gone, it's 8-0, and suddenly you feel pretty decent, even for the Royals. But at that time, at 5-0, I thought, man, I wonder if that's going to come back to get them. And they still had a 5-run lead.
Well, I tell you what, that speaks to something I was thinking of. I was in between a few things yesterday and turned the radio on, and it was 5-0 Royals. And I remember thinking, I don't know. That's my first thought. Like, I don't know what this is going to mean. Meanwhile, the flip side of that is if they're down 3 runs, it's over. And this is, the crux of the problem for this team, finding ways to lose quite often and not able to manufacture enough ways to win. Within that, we got talking about the pitching a little bit, and I do wonder if each of you guys would elaborate on how you see what you see evolving overall in the starting pitching right now. Then we can come back and talk a little bit about what we see in the young hitters as we hope that takes root.
Well, Jonathan Heasley, I think, is, almost under the radar in a way, becoming one of their more consistent guys. I mean, I think his quality starts now are, I think he's got just as many as a handful of other guys combined, and that's like Bubic, Singer, Hernandez. I mean, he's one of those guys that at least is going to give you, a decent outing most times out. And while that doesn't sound like, obviously I'm not, claiming he's a Cy Young type guy or anything like that. I mean, but like for this pitching staff right now, that just consistency from these guys who still haven't pitched full seasons in the major leagues, who, Heasley had his first couple of starts at the end of last season, and that's the entirety of his big league experience before this year, who wasn't in the rotation to start this year. I mean, those things are significant when you start talking about looking forward. Is guys who can be consistent, guys who can come out and you have an idea of what you're going to get from them on a regular basis when they take the ball. So I think that in itself is a big thing. I mean, the last couple of starts, guys didn't get to 5 innings. Singer, I still feel like, has been more consistent since he returned to the rotation. I think he's shown that he's a guy that you have a fairly good idea of what you're going to get from him when you hand him the ball. Again, since he's come back again, and that's even with that inning, the outing the other day where he only got 4 2/3. I think you're starting to see at least some signs of consistency from some of these starters, and I think that's a big deal as far as just going forward, because they haven't had a lot of track record and they haven't had a lot of experience. So consistency has to be one of the first steps for them.
Sam, are you having any of the same feelings? And one way or another, how do you think this tracks as kind of, for lack of a better term, the drama of the rest of the season in evaluating this part of the game?
Yeah, I do agree with Len. First of all, it's not just when they get down 3 runs. The Royals have not won a game when they've been trailing by even 1 run after the first inning. I think they're the only team in baseball that has yet to erase a first inning deficit. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about how you develop the rest of the starting pitching. I mean, that's why we talk about their pitching development as a whole so much this year. I mean, they drafted those 5 guys in the same draft, and I feel like if you can make 2 right now, they're trying to make 3 or 4 of them part of their rotation now. I mean, if you can get 2 rotation guys out of a draft, that's a really good draft. The question is, where do they slide into the rotation? And I do think because of the consistency that Len mentioned with Jonathan Heasley, that he projects as like a 4 or 5 starter. He's a guy that, hopefully isn't going to get get you into like crazy trouble in back-to-back outings. I just think that he throws enough strikes, and I know his first 3 starts notwithstanding, to where he's going to keep you in games more often than not. I don't think Daniel Lynch is going to be out too long. I think we'll see him again soon. And Brady Singer is the other guy that Lynn mentioned, that I still feel like if there's a guy that is throwing right now, Lynch notwithstanding, because he's not, that can be, more of like a 2 or 3 starter, it should be Brady Singer. His fastball's got enough life, and he's got that wipeout slider. And if he is developing the changeup, we've seen him throw it a little bit more at least. I just feel like he's the guy that has the stuff that can at least be in there. So, everybody's development matters, but certainly this pitching staff and the starting rotation more so than anybody for the rest of this year.
Well, as we think about the development that matters most, I know we're all watching with great anticipation to see what continues to happen with Bobby Witt Jr. and MJ Melendez and now Vinnie Pasquantino in particular. There's other young players we can talk about too, but I think in general we might want to expect that these guys are supposed to be the pillars of what the Royals hope to be the real reboot coming in the year or so ahead. When we spoke last week, Vinny had joined the team but hadn't taken his first at bats, and he's had about a week of seasoning now, and probably the most interesting moment I think came Friday night in Detroit. I really enjoyed how you chronicled that, Lynn. If you don't mind, take us through his first home run and what was so unusual about it, and then we can get into a little bit of what we think he's looking to be so far.
Well, first of all, hey, we need to recognize that Lynn conveniently took his first series off of the season when all hell broke loose last week, and so he timed that one perfectly.
No names, but people in the press box always seem to think that Lynn just happens to finally take a day off a year when 27 things happen. But I think that makes those days off more worthwhile.
Well, you know what it is it's making sure that I hand it off to somebody and I don't give them one of those situations where they have to drum something up. I'm giving them stuff that's just right there for them. I mean, you got a Carlos Santana trade, you got injury update with Salvador Perez, you got Vinnie Pasquantino coming out. I mean, you don't have to come in and saying, "Oh, what am I going to write about it?" I'm handing it to you right there. I mean, I'm making it easy on them.
That's what a true point guard and team player does. So I'm glad Sam brought that up. But let's circle back to the original question. Vinnie Pasquantino's first home run, that would be a little launch pad of its own for us to talk about him. Can you describe what was going on in the press box as you saw that happen, Lynn? And tell our audience, some may not know about what happened, but just how unusual that home run was.
Yeah, it was actually the hardest hit home run of the season for the Royals. I think it was, if I remember correctly, 112.7 miles per hour off the bat, exit velo, and it was a line drive. And the what caused the issue, or the confusion, I should say, was in Detroit. It's a line drive and it hits above the yellow line, which makes it a home run. That's out of the ballpark. But there's a railing that's just above the wall. I guess the railing was doing its job, because the ball coming that fast, hit that railing as opposed to going into the front row, because I wouldn't have wanted to be that person sitting in that first row of the bleachers who's not paying attention when that thing was coming at me. But anyways, it hit that railing and falls back onto the field. And because it was going so fast and everything happened so fast, it comes back onto the field. Right fielder throws it in. And so there's that moment of confusion. Is like, wait a minute, did that go out? Did that not go out? Vinny doesn't see it off the bat, because as he told me afterward, he said, well, really, I had my head down and I was running. He's like, I didn't want to, he prefaced it like, I don't want to sound like, Mr. Hardcore Baseball, that I was, was running hard. He's like, but I literally had my head down and was running. So he picks up the first base coach, Damon Hollins, tells him, run. He runs. The ball's coming in, and Javi Baez, the shortstop, was there waiting for the throw. And Vinny sort of thought maybe that it got out. He wasn't really sure, but he saw Javi and was just like, Javi's going to try and deke me into, slowing up so that he can tag me. So he slides into second base on his first career home run, gets tagged, and actually was called out by the second base umpire, sliding into second base on his first career home run. First career hit, too. I think he's the first Royals player since Ryan O'Hearn for his first hit to be a home run. But, yeah, so he hits a line drive for a home run. Wasn't sure it was a home run. Actually got tagged out sliding into second base by Javi Baez, and gets a home run out of it. And he actually had a really good perspective on it. It was funny because after the game, we're asking Mike Matheny about it, and he said, he was actually saying, it kind of took away a little bit from it that he didn't get to jog around the bases with his first home run. Vinny had almost the flip side of that, saying like, well, no, that's about how it probably would go. He referenced the spring training home run, but wasn't really sure that one went out. And he mentioned, now he'll be telling that story to his grandkids one day that his first major league hit, his first major league home run, he ended up getting tagged out at second base by Javi Baez. And he even said he was going to try and send the jersey over to Javi and hope that he signed it for him.
It was really just great to picture that last part of the home run trot after being tagged out. Sam, you did a great piece on sort of the roots of Vinny and how he came to be here. I'd urge our audience to make sure they check that out if they haven't seen it already. How have you seen what you learned about him through the process of that that exploration of him, basically? What do you think that says about what we can expect of his maturation process, and how are you seeing him play out so far?
I think that, what we've learned so far is mostly that the scouting report we had heard has been pretty on point. And that does include his speed. I mean, Lynn mentioned that he gets tagged out at second. I mean, if that ball had not gotten out, that is not a ball he should be, bumbling into second just to try and reach. The other funny element of this, and Lynn mentioned in his story, is that after Baez tags him, he's given the signal like, no, that's a home run. As the umpire calls him out, the opposing player is like, no, that's a home run. Vinny's only got 3 hits so far, but he's walked, I think, 6 times. So his on-base percentage is still over 400. And that's what I say when I mean the scouting report has been on point with him, is that he doesn't waste at bats. He tries to wait until he gets a pitch that he actually wants to swing at. And, I think that there's been some people that have been anxious to see how that would play in the major leagues, because you can't be too patient in the major leagues, because a lot of times you're lucky to get one pitch to hit over the course of a plate appearance. So you got to swing early if you get it. We saw Vinny on the first couple of nights do that. He would swing at first pitch. And so I think that was drilled into him that we love you to be patient. You got to continue to not swing at bad pitches. But if you get one you like, whether it's the first pitch or not, you got to take a hack. And so I do think we're going to see him work through that maturation process here in the big leagues. But he's not swinging at a ton of bad pitches and getting himself out. And I do think that's a quality that should play for a while in the major leagues.
And it's also just excuse me, Brian. I was going to add to that it was funny is that day that he hit the first home run, he batted in a cleanup spot for the first time. And so before the game, asking Mike Matheny about, young guy, putting them in the cleanup spot, do you have to have any sort of concern or conversation about him staying within his approach, or, not trying to do too much because he's in that spot that's, considered, okay, you're going to be the guy who's supposed to be the run producer. And then I also just followed up with saying, well, he's also been one of those guys like MJ where he's been taking walks. So, he's got some patience there. And the thing that Mike Matheny said, and this is before the game, was he says, yeah, we like that patient approach, but he said we also want him to be aggressive at pitches that he can do damage with. And it was just funny that I looked to, I think it was Joel Goldberg was next to me in the press box when he hit that home run, or after he hit that home run, and said to him, I said, do you remember what Matheny said before the game about him, being aggressive on pitches he can do damage with? And I was like, they tried to sneak a first pitch fastball by him, and that's the hardest hit home run of the season. So it was just funny to see, like Sam was talking about, some of that play out, because obviously he's been patient, he's taken his walks, but there also is that element of you just think you're going to groove something to him because he's just up there taking pitches, and that's not going to be the case either.
lost within that in my mind was that I think he had an at bat where he walked in one of those first 2 games. I think he just took 6 straight pitches on that at bat. It's kind of just interesting within the subset of all this. Let's take a little break now and hear from the University of Kansas Health System.
March 4th, 2015, I got out of the shower and felt a lump in my left breast.
We were able to quickly uncover that she had 2 subtypes of breast cancer, each of them requiring separate and unique treatment plans. This is why you come to the University of Kansas Cancer Center.
It is critical to be treated by a team of experts in that specific cancer type. If you don't start with us, I think you'll have more questions than answers.
Why would you go anywhere else?
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There is Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening.
We've gotten ourselves talking a little bit about Vinnie Pasquantino's week. I think it's always probably worth us checking in on Bobby Witt Jr. and MJ Melendez in particular. And MJ's had some nice moments after some rough moments. I wonder, Lynn, how you see his state of mind and how the arc of his season you think is playing out.
Well, I think maybe one of the better things for him. I see my commentary was not appreciated right there. Anyway, I think one of the things that probably helps him is that he's getting those everyday at bats. I mean, I know they wanted to keep him in there even before Salvi was hurt, get him, whether that's right field, DH, but now that he's in there on a regular basis, getting everyday at bats. And that means even when things aren't going good, I mean, to a certain extent, that's the more important, that you have to go through those struggles so that, you can deal with those and come out the other side, or just to know how to deal with those in the future. And for MJ, I forget what the number was. I know I had it in the story this morning. It was like 2 for his last, I think, almost 30 or something like that. Recently, before last night when he hits 2 home runs, and he said afterwards that he was probably pressing a little bit, probably trying to do too much. And then once he got into a little bit of a slump, it sort of snowballed where he goes up there trying to do too much because he's in a slump. And I think the term he used was trying to get all the hits back on each time at the plate, which, just isn't possible. But again, working with, the coaching staff and sort of taking a step back and I think to a certain extent, some of the struggles he had, especially in 2019 in the minors, has probably helped him be able to deal with some of those things. But again, you can't do anything. I mean, you can't really deal with it until you're in the big leagues doing it on a daily basis. But also, I don't think you've seen it affect his defense, which is a big thing, is with a young guy, especially at that position, catcher. If you're letting whatever struggles at the plate carry over and it's affecting you behind the plate, that's a no-go. You can't have it. It can't happen. You got to be there for your pitchers. You got to be there defensively. You got to be blocking balls. You got to be, going through scout reports. You got to be handling your business on that side. And I don't think there's been any indication that any of that slumping has affected what he's doing behind the plate.
Sam, when it comes to the Bobby Witt Jr. aspect of this, I think we've all been having chances to discuss this all along, how it's one thing to do it whatever you're doing at AA or AAA, but the whole development coming at this level is obviously what's so crucial to the future. Bobby's had a pretty darn good season, but there's also ups and downs within that. How much do you think this year will mean to his 2023 and 2024?
A lot. First of all, I think for a rookie, the guy's having a really good year. And we've seen over the past 2 weeks or so why he's the future at shortstop. You know, they opened him up at third base to begin the season, and he's played a fantastic shortstop over the past couple of weeks. So I think he's growing into that position. I also think you have to take in mind that he's growing into that position as he's trying to figure things out at the plate. One of the things I think will improve as time goes on is his pitch selection. I think that's one of the things getting him in the most trouble. He swings at a lot of low and outside breaking stuff. And unfortunately, he makes contact with a lot of low and outside breaking stuff out of the zone when he chases. So that combination leads to weak contact. But, you know, we've seen his power. We've seen his speed on the bases, both, you know, stealing bases and, you know, taking extra bases. I think the guy still has a really bright future. The Royals probably could not have expected more out of, you know, a 21, now 22-year-old kid in his first year. But when we talk about both those guys together as a package with MJ Melendez and Bobby Witt Jr., that was always sort of the argument for why you bring up Vinnie Pasquantino sooner rather than later, is because they're going to struggle. But, you know, I mean, we just mentioned it. MJ Melendez hit 2 home runs yesterday. You know, they come through those struggles too. And I think that, you know, there's nothing that can mimic those sort of growing pains better than actually just experiencing them for yourself and then figuring out how to come through it on the other side. And it does make me wonder what the plan is for, you know, some of the other prospects in the minor leagues. You know, it's probably no secret to some of our viewers. I mean, that you got some guys tearing it up in Omaha right now. They scored 20 runs. I think they hit 9 home runs last night. You know, minor leagues usually don't play on Monday. I guess since it was July 4th, they decided to, and Omaha probably wants to play every Monday now. But Prado hit one. Michael Massey has been incredible since he got promoted from AA to AAA, sitting over 300. Nate Eaton is the same way. Got promoted from AA to AAA. Hit one, I think it at least won maybe two of the 9 last night. Him and Massey have over 1,000 OPS. And so just the reason I bring that up is because we talk about guys struggling and coming through it. And I wonder if there's a different plan than maybe the Royals enter the season with some of their minor leaguers to see them potentially go through the same struggles. And, you know, maybe those guys are more ready for 2023 and 2024.
I think that's a great point, Sam. And I think just using the word growing pains, I think you can perceive this season a little differently or frame it a little differently if you feel like at some level 10, 12, 14 guys are here getting developed and having the growing pains, or even 6, 7, 8, 9 like it is now. But I think it's a worthwhile question for the Royals over the next couple months, how much to go ahead and put them in the water basically and make those moves. Part of that is going to be what they do to move some veterans. And, you know, nobody's hotter, or at least made himself more appealing in that category than Andrew Benintendi. I wonder, Lynn, how you see Andrew's value going up and how much of an irresistible force he might be becoming on the trade market for the Royals to deploy.
I think this is just my sort of educated guess, is it's probably going to be one of those ones that's closer to the deadline, just because I feel like they're going to want to, you know, get the most that they can for him. And as teams get closer to that point that they have to do something, you know, where it's like you got that when you have that deadline and they'll try and piece things together until they can't any longer. Then maybe that's when you get the most out of them by, you know, taking it right down to the you know, the day, because, you know, right now they might be sort of posturing and saying, well, we've got this guy that we like and we've got this option, and they might be looking at other guys on the market and who might be out there. But when it comes down to, you know, that day and it's, you know, other guys have been moved, or, you know, it's either you try and make the deal now or you don't make the deal, then maybe that's when something finally happens. But I feel like it's got to happen. I mean, ever since, you know, spring training, when, you know, a couple of us had asked him about, you know, potentially discussions on the long-term extension, and as far as he knew, he said, yeah, that hasn't happened. So when they hadn't talked extension, he was going into free agency. It seemed like the writing was on the wall. And also, I think the other thing is, you know, as you alluded to, if he gets moved, it opens up spots for some of these other guys, because that's, I think, also part of the equation with, okay, you want to bring up some guys and maybe take a look at them. It's like, well, you got to have playing time for them. And so if Andrew Benintendi is taking up playing time in the outfield, that means maybe Edward Olivares is in the outfield. That means maybe, when Salvi comes back, that's one fewer spots that you could put MJ out in the outfield. Kyle Isbell right now is still, like that playing time with him is getting a little bit more now. But so there's a lot of guys that you, in theory, want to get some playing time for, but with these other guys there's not that many spaces. And then if you're going to bring up more guys, then again, you just don't have the playing time for them, at least not regularly, as opposed to if you leave them down in AAA and they are playing. But Benny, I think, because he's hitting, over 300, not a whole lot of power, but also some of that is probably Kauffman Stadium. Some of that is in going back to more of a line drive approach. But he gets on base regularly. He hits regularly. He hits, consistently with guys in, if you put guys in scoring position, he's going to hit. And then he's playing Gold Glove defense, So I don't see any way that he's not getting moved. Actually talked to him the other day, the story that we posted yesterday about I think he didn't come out and say it, but I think he all but expects that he's going to get moved. He's already talked to JJ about that possibility and basically just said that they're going to keep him in the loop. And so, I think that's almost a foregone conclusion. It's just a matter of how soon. And I would expect it's probably closer to the deadline when they can exact the biggest price and put the most pressure on whoever it is that's looking for him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, what's interesting about this year's trade deadline is there's not a ton of big bats available. A lot of years you've got looming free agents. Last year we saw Chris Bryant traded. There's not like a ton of big names. Wilson Contreras is out there, but he's a catcher. Only plays one position. So I think there's some things that could work in the Royals' favor to where they need to expand their thinking beyond Andrew Benintendi because he's the obvious guy. And they need to think who else might draw some interest for us. And that question's going to come down to when exactly do they think they're going to be competitive? And also, how comfortable are they with getting worse this year? And we've talked about the second one quite a bit already. But they've got some other guys in their team that I think would be attractive, even if not at the same level that Andrew Benintendi. We've talked about Whit Merrifield for a long time now. But, would Hunter Dozier draw some interest? He doesn't make a significant amount of money. What kind of interest would Michael Taylor have? He's only under contract through next year. And then you look at the relievers as well. So I think that the Royals could take advantage of a weaker market out there for buyers. And suddenly, the sellers could have some more leverage than what they usually have. With Benintendi, it's just going to come down to what's their best offer. They're going to trade him. They can't afford to keep him through the year. It's just going to be, well, we're waiting, guys. Everybody knows he's available. Tell me what your best offer is, and they just pick that one. But I do agree with Lynn. It's going to make more sense to wait to the teams get more desperate when the trade deadline is nearing.
Yeah, and that question, that you posed about how comfortable they are with getting worse this year. I don't have an answer for that, but it's one of those things that, just sort of in the press box we've kicked around because, I know I said it even, yesterday and probably over this weekend a couple of times. I was like, selfishly, just thinking about, the rest of the season, I was like, because there's relief guys, like Scott Barlow. Yesterday aside, because relievers are going to give up. Relievers going to give up solo home run, but just it was the situation made that one bigger than because it was a walk off. But yeah, just thinking again selfishly about what that last 2 months might be if you think about that bullpen and you take out their best reliever. That could be a long couple of months just for those folks who are watching on a daily basis. But I couldn't blame them for making that move if you whether that's trading him straight up for something or if that's him as a package with the Benintendi or somebody else. There's a case to be made that they'd be doing themselves a disservice by not doing that. So if there's something to be gained from that, especially if there's somebody that they've got their eye on, they feel like could help them sooner than later. I think that's going to be the thing, is making a deal that's going to give you some, not necessarily guys who are 4 years away. I think if there's some guys that are close to being able to help you, I think they definitely are going to be looking for more of that as opposed to the young guys. 'Cause I think, especially with the changes in the minor leagues, they feel like they've got a flood of young guys. It's more getting guys that are going to be able to help them sooner, especially with the guys they've got at the major leagues that are young. And, you want to be adding to that, not adding to 4 years down the line. You want to be building for the next couple of years, not for, 10 years.
Well, listen, that's great stuff from Lynn Worthy and Sam McDowell, and we could go on, but we also want to leave you wanting more. So we'll say goodbye. We'll thank the University of Kansas Health System again. Thank you to Monty Davis for producing. Thank you to Blair Kirchhoff for the invisible hand on putting this together, and thanks again to Lynn and Sam. We'll look forward to talking to you guys next week, and everybody have a great week.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production team of Monty Davis, Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. Tip of the ball cap to Vahe Gregorian, Sam McDowell, and Lynn Worthy for sharing their insights. Morning Sports Edition was full of baseball, soccer, auto racing, Wimbledon coverage, and more. Check it out at liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC.